Hi, I'm Kyle Cusick. Today, on behalf of Charlotte Atheists and Agnostics, I will be doing a presentation on secular morality. Where do atheists get their morals? So for starters, I wanted to talk about CAA membership. There's some information on membership if you want to look into that. We'd love to have you as a member. So getting to my presentation. Religion has had a stranglehold on the conversation of morality for quite some time now. The oldest example that I could find was over 3,000 years old, the 42 principles of Ma'at, which were found on the papyrus of Anai, who is the goddess of truth and morality. There were 42 rules. I've listed the first 5 of them here, and I'll be posting this slideshow later. If you don't get a chance to read the whole thing, you can either pause the video or I can send you the slideshow if you'd like. So yes, I've listed the first 5 here, not all 42 principles. So they seem like universal principles that we should all adhere to, yet they weren't being taught as things that we should follow just because they're moral. They were being taught as things you should follow to appease this particular goddess. The Bible followed a few hundred years later, being taught that we can't be good without God. Things changed during the Age of Reason or the Enlightenment. Descartes had a big part in that in the late 17th century. His 3 maxims in provisional morality. Now, when I first heard about these 3 maxims, I assumed that there were going to be 3 moral rules, but they were more along the lines of 3 ways to make your own moral rules. Like number 2, be as firm and resolute in my actions as I was able, which is essentially saying, don't half-ass it. If you're going to do something, do it wholeheartedly. So yeah, these were 3 rules as to how to come up with your own moral code. Friedrich Nietzsche in the late 19th century. He famously said that God is dead, but he also warned that when one gives up the Christian faith, one pulls the right to Christian morality out from under one's feet. This morality is by no means self-evident. So yeah, when I had heard before this phrase that God is dead, I knew that Nietzsche said it, and I had always assumed that he meant it in a good way. I had always assumed that he was happy that the Christian God was dead. But upon researching for this presentation, I found out he was not happy about that. He was quite weary of it, that he was worried that upon the death of the Christian God, that Christian morality would also die. And like he said, this morality is by no means self-evident. So he wasn't giving us too much credit. He thought that we would not be able to figure out these morals on our own, and without the Christian God, we'd be lost. And so he wasn't giving secular morality too much credit. There are some secular moral frameworks. I've just listed 3 of them here. So free thought and secular humanism are 2 that I'm sure we're mostly familiar with. Free thinking, just that opinions should be formed on the basis of science, logic, and reason. Secular humanism is basically the belief that we can be good without God. Speaking to my personal experience, I was raised as a Christian, but I was also raised as a free thinker and as a secular humanist. So I was taught to think for myself and come to my own conclusions, which is probably how I ended up as an atheist. I was also taught to be a secular humanist. So I was taught to believe in God, but I was also taught to be a good person, and those beliefs were separate. I was not taught to believe in God because I was being watched by some deity. I was not taught to believe in God so that I could be rewarded in heaven. I was taught to be a good person simply because it was the right thing to do. So yeah, and for that I'm grateful, because when my beliefs changed, my principles did not. Now, consequentialism was something else that I came across as I was researching secular moral frameworks, and somebody can correct me if I get this wrong later. But it sounds like it's saying that the ends justify the means, essentially, that the consequences. So the morality of your actions are the morality of your actions are determined by the consequences of your actions. So if the consequences are good, then what you did must have been good. So Einstein, there's a name we all recognize. He stepped out of science and dipped his toe into morality. This was not the only time he did it. He had plenty of things to say on philosophy and morality. He said, a man's ethical behavior should be based effectually on sympathy, education, and social ties and needs. No religious basis is necessary. Man would indeed be in a poor way if he had to be restrained by fear of punishment and hopes of reward after death. So that's an interesting idea, that man would be in a poor way if he had to be restrained by these ideas. Saying that, I think he gave us more credit than that, saying that saying that man is better than that. Man does not need to be restrained by these things. Which brings me to a quote by Penn Jillette. Penn said, "If you are doing something for reward or punishment, it is not morality. It is fear or it is greed, but it is not morality." Something else that Penn famously said in the same interview, people who say, "If you don't believe in God, what's stopping me from raping and killing everyone I want to?" And the answer is, I have raped and killed everyone I want to. And the number is 0. I want to rape and kill no one. Yeah, it kind of scares me when I hear people ask, if you're an atheist, why don't you go do all these horrible things? I'm like, is their religion, is their belief really the only thing stopping them from doing all these horrible things? I'd like to think that it's not, but I'll tell you what, if it is, I don't want to talk them out of their beliefs. I'd hate to change their mind and then find out that they weren't kidding. But again, the last two sentences of Penn's quote here, I think, are worth repeating because I think they really get to the heart of the matter of how a lot of us feel about secular morality. If you are doing something for reward or punishment, it is not morality. It is fear or it is greed, but it is not morality. And another familiar name, Ricky Gervais, when being interviewed by Piers Morgan, said that they, referring to Christians, haven't got a monopoly on good. I'm not a Christian, but I live my life in a good way. And some say, well, who says what good is? Well, you know what? I do. I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated. And I don't believe I'll be rewarded in heaven. So there, Ricky's making the same point as Penn and Einstein did, saying that I'm doing a good thing even though I don't believe I'll be rewarded in heaven. That's what true morality is. Daniel Dennett, an American philosopher and cognitive scientist, said that the idea that people need God to be good is not only a popular myth, but also a harmful one, which I thought was an interesting point. He believes that people want to lead good lives, and then along comes religions that say, well, you can't be good without God, to convince people that they have to do this. So it sounds like Dennett is saying that religions are using morality as a method of controlling people, that if people do want to do good, and if they believe that the only way they can do good is with God, then it stands to reason that they have to join a church. So in that sense, religion is promoting these beliefs to, again, to control people. If they want to be a good person, then they need the church. So that may be the main motivation for people to take religion seriously, because they want to lead good lives. Hitchens, of course, was insulted by the question. I've rejected the appalling insinuation that I would not know right from wrong if I was not supernaturally guided. He then went on to say, if I asked any audience, can they think of a wicked action taken because of religion, nobody has a single second of hesitation before they can think of one. So as we're being asked, if you're an atheist, how can you be a good person? We need to keep in mind that as we discuss secular morality, we need to keep in mind that some pretty terrible things have been done in the name of religion. And as we discuss secular morality, that should not be forgotten. Sam Harris gave an interesting TED Talk called Science Can Answer Moral Questions. And that got me thinking, because up until I saw this TED Talk, I had been thinking that that one interesting thing about secular morality is that it's subjective, that it can't possibly be objective because it's not based on a single source the way non-secular morality is. But if science can answer these questions, then it stands to reason that they would be objective answers. And Harris says that values are a certain kind of fact. They're facts about the well-being of ethical creatures. So that got me thinking that if science can answer these questions, then maybe morality is sometimes objective. That gave me something to think about. He went on to say, we can no more respect and tolerate vast differences in notions of human well-being than we can respect or tolerate vast differences in notions of how disease spreads or in the safety standards of buildings and airplanes. So gave me a lot to think about. I posted the link to Harris's video here if you're interested. Interesting book I have. I unfortunately haven't read the whole thing, but The Bonobo and the Atheist, In Search of Humanism Among the Primates. Biologist Franz de Waal gives some stories of what he calls animal altruism, just some instances of morality which he's observed among non-humans. And surely it stands to reason that if non-humans are moral, they're clearly not doing things to please a God. They're not even aware of the existence of God. So they must be doing things for secular reasons. says, for example, apes will voluntarily open a door to offer a companion access to food, even if they lose part of it in the process. And I thought that was a touching story. So if these things are built into apes, clearly they must be built into us as well. And maybe that helps to answer part of the question as to where our morals come from. Maybe they're partly built into us maybe they're partly built into us in an evolutionary way. Matt Dillahunty is part of the atheist community of Austin. He gives a talk called The Superiority of Secular Morality. He tours the country giving this talk. He gave 6 key points on why, on contrasting secular and non-secular moral systems. I listed the first 3 here. Or 3 of the 6 I listed here. The source of core values, which for secular moral systems are internal to the system as opposed to non-secular systems, they're external. Whose interests are served? For secular morals, they serve the interest of those inside the system. It's where we get the core values. It's who we're trying to protect. For non-secular systems, they may or may not protect those inside the system. And robustness and flexibility. He talks a lot about that. Talks about how secular moral systems are flexible and can change as the world changes. And interestingly, non-secular systems often claim to be superior because they are inflexible, when really we've seen that they change as well on issues like slavery and rape. They've clearly changed their mind. If you look at writings like the Old Testament, those beliefs have clearly changed, yet they claim to be inflexible and superior for that reason. So yeah, Matt says, the values that most people have, even when they claim they're adhering to a religious system, are influenced and have been changed by secular values that directly contradict what the traditional views of their organization are. They have, in a very real sense, adopted a secular system as a new external source for their morality. Yeah, Matt's talk is close to an hour long. I listed that as well as a truncated version, which he gives at a particular university, which is just a half hour long. I thought I would close today's discussion by just showing the last 3 minutes. The last 3 minutes of Matt's presentation here, because he sums up his presentation much better than I could sum up mine.
But by and large, we see that the values that most people have, even when they claim they're adhering to a religious system, are influenced and have been changed by secular values that directly contradict what the traditional views of their organization are. That is a bald-faced admission that their system is inferior to a secular system. Many religious individuals and groups have modified their personal sense of morality away from the foundations of their religion and realigned themselves with the values encouraged by secular progressives. They have, for all intents and purposes, adopted the views of a secular system while clinging to the foundation and rationalizing it away with personal interpretations. They have, in a very real sense, adopted a secular moral system as a new external source for their morality. They're so rigidly stuck in this idea that it needs to come from outside that they don't even realize that when they make changes, they're taking it from outside. We need to show people that they do not have to be stealth secularists. They can actually join in and participate. They can be proud of their participation and directly benefit from their contributions rather than standing in opposition to the very values they secretly embrace. Secular moral systems are inclusive. The authority comes from within. The focus is on improvement. It's based on our interests, and the authority is based directly on a demonstration that the results meet the goals. Secular moral systems are superior because we say so. And because I say so was an unsatisfying answer, because we say so is an immensely satisfying answer. Because I say so doesn't impart any understanding at all. Because we say so is the product of understanding. It is the demonstration of understanding. Because I say so is some hollow assertion. Because we say so is an empowering statement. We need not make appeals to the unknown. We should not opt for the lazy, unthinking path. We cannot afford to struggle against progress in order to embrace antiquated ideals. We are intelligent, empathetic, compassionate beings, and we have the ability to set goals and solve problems. We've been doing it for as long as we've had the capacity for thought, and we continue to get better at it. The fact that we're not yet perfect at it doesn't cripple us. It drives us, because the goals of a secular morality include the goal of getting better and getting better. There should be no question that this method is superior. And it's time we stopped allowing ourselves to get mired in fallacious appeals to ignorance and authority, and simply continue to get on with the business of building a better world. Thank you.
So yeah, so ends my presentation. Thanks for joining us.